You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have an awesome guest today, Michal Aviram.
Hi.
I wanted to bring you on because you're on a really cool show on Netflix called Fauda about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict from an Israeli perspective, and it's really interesting because you guys humanize all of the characters. I think is amazing, and it's a gripping show. And I think you guys are going on your fourth season now. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're writing the fourth season.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So, if you could just give us a quick origin story of how you came on to the project to write Fauda, because from what I understand, you've been on it since the ground up, so since the inception of the show.
Yeah, I was there even before we got greenlighted, which is like 9 years ago, maybe 8.5 years ago. It was a very long process because the show has two creators, Avi Yisrael and Leo Raz, and Leo is also the guy who's doing the Doron character, the lead character, and
okay.
They both, yeah, super cool. And they both came with a very personal story. They met during their service in the army in a unit. So, just in a nutshell, if people don't know what the show is about, it's about a unit, special unit in. Well, it's not in the army, it's like in the Shabak, but I won't get into too many details. But there are guys who disguise to be Arabs. They wear like Arab clothes, if that's a thing, like in the fashion in the West Bank, and they speak fluent Arab, and they go and do their, making arrests and all kinds of things in the West Bank.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
So these two guys in the army, when they were 18, they were in a unit like that. And it's like a very dangerous unit, and it's a very secret unit. So really wanted to talk about their service and trying to disguise and do like all the operations would do to you based on characters of themselves and people that they knew from the service.
Right.
Yeah.
Are these real stories? Are these somewhat inspired by real events, but just kind of changed slightly?
Well, first and foremost, it's an entertainment show. So what led us was just giving like the best action show that we can. So a lot of the story, and I think that the magic or what really works in this show is the fact that it is based on real experiences, but we obviously change a lot of things because, just to make it more, work on television, maybe like an operation that would take a month, would take on the show like 3 hours or something like that. So
right.
I think the strong parts in Fauda are definitely the parts that came from their stories and their deep understanding of the situation and what it is to be a soldier in a unit like that. And a lot of time, especially when you talk to broadcasters, then sometimes they want you to make it very like broad or very American. But I truly believe that the more specific you make the story and the closer it is to you, the better it is.
Passionate and authentic is what I'm getting from you, and that comes through in the story. And I totally agree with you. And this show is fascinating because this unit is undercover. They are working in dangerous environments, and to be able to have a first person perspective as a resource that you can use in writing the show had to be probably overwhelming, I would say, at certain points, because you're getting inundated with so much information. And then did you have to struggle with trying to stay, true to these guys, to their story and honoring them, but yet still trying to make it a fantastic, action thriller for a show that inevitably ends up on a big streamer like Netflix?
there are two sides of the Fauda story. There is the Israeli side, and then there's the Palestinian side. And what we knew from the get-go is that we want to have a 50-50 Arabic and Hebrew on the show, which is very... It was, at the time, it was only like for an Israeli broadcaster, and it was very bold, I guess, to have a show with so much Arabic on it. It wasn't something you see every day at all.
Yeah. Groundbreaking.
Absolutely. And I think, yes, the broadcaster were super brave in understanding, because I think that because the heart, or maybe the theme of the show, is about identity and the fact that, okay, I mean, these guys are Israelis, they're Jewish, they're enemy, quote unquote, because the whole enemy thing is very complicated, obviously.
Yes.
But their enemies are like the Arabs, or the people on the West Bank, the Palestinians. You know, super important for us to show that the inner conflict, because these guys, most of them grew up in like houses where they spoke Arabic. I mean, like Jewish Israeli houses, but like their grandfathers are from Arab countries. So culturally, they're very close, in a sense, to the West Bank. So everything's super complicated, you know. I mean, there are a lot of layers of like the identity. So we knew we wanted to have it like half Hebrew, half Arabic. But we also knew from, you know, that we could never like take the responsibility, or being Israelis and Jewish, everybody who wrote the show are Jewish and Israeli. We could never authentically, you know, represent the Palestinian sides. And we never tried to. We could only tell our side of the story. Right. And that was very important to us. And I think there is, yes, it's a television show, and our, you know, the broadcasters paying us or producing the show want it to be successful, but it's such delicate matters that it was super important to us to, when we showed like the other side, the Palestinians, to show them as people with families and with like, make them human, so you could relate to them. And and I think that in a sense, also in a dramatic sense, the Palestinian sides, again, as a dramatic sense, I wouldn't want to live there. It's a very hard life, obviously, you know, being under occupation, all of that. But dramatically, I think they are amazing characters, because like their fight never ends, right?
Yeah.
Doron comes back and goes back home, and like, okay, he has like a lot of emotional issues, but he's back home at safety. But Palestinian people, like, their fight is never over, because like, so I guess it made their characters, everything was super intense for the Palestinian side. And I think it really, helped people, first and foremost, Israelis watching the show, connect to the Palestinian characters like better. And and I mean, I don't want to make any spoilers, but there was one, I mean, more than one, but a specific Palestinian character when they, let's say, died. Everybody in Israel talked about. My sister didn't want to talk to me. Was, why would you do that? Why would you kill them? I mean, and it is. I mean, you're American, so like you're looking at this conflict from the outside. But for us to show people who are, and again, they are all involved, right there. Hamas people. It's not like they're living their day to day, and having people in Israel really like these people, really like them, and so it was a big deal.
It sounds incredibly difficult, but yet incredibly powerful to be able to weave a story like that and still, tell it from a certain perspective, of course, but still honoring, both sides, which is, I mean, it's impressive. So when it came to like the developing of the show, it started with the characters, which, I think is brilliant, because the characters are going to be the soul of a story for television. It's different from features. We work on concepts first, but television, we start with the character, and then you start developing layers around those characters that you can slowly unravel over multiple seasons. how long did that process take where you started kind of developing these plot lines and mysteries that you could unravel and then build upon throughout to give a show legs? Because it's very easy to write yourself into a corner in a show. And so I have to think you were putting in a ton of work.
It took about forever, but I think
so,
yeah,
literal time for it.
No, I mean, I think for the first season, we worked for about a year, something like that. Yeah, and I'm talking about a writer's room meeting like 2-3 times a week for like 4 hours.
Just developing,
Just it's really like finding the story and the characters and all of that and
I don't want to, and that's before, I hate to cut in, but that's before you've even touched the pilot, right? You developed for a year and then did the pilot.
Yeah. I mean,
see, people need to know that because a lot of people will just jump into a pilot.
I like to jump into the pilot, but like not in this show, but when I'm working on my shows, a lot of time I will write a pilot, but it just, no one will probably read it. It will definitely won't make it to the screen, and what will get to the screen will be considerably different. But for me, just to feel it, just to feel the characters and just to not to look at like a blank page, right? Just to have something to start to find the look and feel of the show. So, but it's just a step that I use. But if we go back to Fauda or even other shows that I worked on, I think that the right process is, talk about the characters and always, especially when you write with other people, always try to have in the conversation to talk about theme. What it is that you want to, theme.
Brilliant.
What it is that you want to talk about, and because it will really guide you to, what kind of plots to develop and all of that. So what I do, I mean, my process is like thinking about the characters, 2 or 3 main characters, depending on the show. And then what really works for me is thinking about the initiative incident and the ending of the first episode and the ending of the season, just so I would know what it is that I'm talking about.
So you kind of use the inciting incident in episode 1.
Oh, inciting? You say inciting? I always say initiating. Inciting?
Yeah, we say inciting incident. You say initiative? That's fine. I mean, you can have different terms for it.
Inciting. I think I spell it inciting, but I pronounce it initiative. Like the Dharma.
It's
whatever works.
It's apples and oranges. You have the cliffhanger, the act out of episode 1, and then you have the cliffhanger season finale of season 1, and those are your goalposts.
Yeah. And I also think that the pilot or the first episode puts out building blocks or materials of the whole season. We will know that, okay, so we have the characters and they're living their, usual life. It could be good life. It could be bad life. It could be whatever. The inciting incident happens and then they have to activate. Hopefully by the end of the first episode, we care about. We don't have to like him, but we need to care about what's going on with him. So we will know what it is that they need and what will happen if they don't get it.
No, I think that's great. I mean, what a character needs versus what they want is really how you kind of drive your character forward. It's that conflict that gives the show fuel that you get to kind of play with in a diabolical way as you make their life incredibly difficult episode after episode.
This podcast is brought to you by TheSuccessfulScreenwriter.com, where you can find instructional books, videos, courses, and screenplays of Hollywood's biggest hits to download. As an added bonus, visit www.thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com to download The Guide for Every Screenwriter for free. Yes, free. Available exclusively at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com. Now, back to our show.
With the pilot, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting, isn't it? Because you have to introduce everything, the entire world, the whole conflict, all the characters and all of that. After we've done all of that heavy lifting, do you find the other episodes, because you've written several episodes on the season, do you find the other episodes are easier to write?
For sure.
Yeah.
Writing the scenes is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But writing the treatment for the first episode, I think it's way harder. Everything needs to be super specific, right? And you said about, introduction to the world. And also you have to be like super careful about exposition because, everybody's watching like a ton of movies and shows these days. And like the audience is so sophisticated and they can, they smell it and they have zero patience for it. And me too, as an audience. Yeah, you can't stand it. So first of all, you have to understand that the audience they are smart and they are very, they know TV as much as you do, and they don't need to be spoon-fed. They really don't. And they enjoy, connecting the dots, and you don't need to explain everything to them. And you don't have, not all, like 100% of the audience need to understand everything. It's okay if some of the audience wouldn't understand each and everything. It's okay. It goes to the show don't tell kind of rule, because you really have to let people experience the world and like the world and be fascinated with the world without like telling them this is this guy and he wants this, and right, they need to really sense it. And from very early on in the episode, not at the end of the episode, they need to understand the world very early on. And I think it's watching pilots is really a good exercise for screenwriters, because you really need to ask yourself, at what part of the episode am I hooked? And also ask yourself, what you think was going to happen at the end of the episode? Did it really happen? When were you surprised? Were you even surprised? I think pilots are very, very, very important.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about spoon feeding and putting in twists to surprise the audience, because you have to have twists. You have to have those surprises. Otherwise, people are bored. I mean, because they'll just say they could write it. So where in the process does that come in for you, where you start developing this trail of breadcrumbs for people to follow and lead them down the wrong path so that you can have that gotcha moment?
The red herrings, if you like. It depends. If you're talking about like the seasonal, misleading kind of things, that you do need to think about them pretty early on when you do the outline to the whole season. Let's talk about thrillers for a second. Like I would go, like, I have an idea. I would start working on the characters, and then we know what, their lives, and we're going to throw this disaster at them, and now they have to do something. And then I will, as soon as possible, think about the ending of the season, because if I don't know the point of the whole thing, then I would never know where are they going. I mean, I really, really believe that you need to know the ending. Now, the ending can change, and it will change when you write the whole season, but you need something to aim for. It has to really hit a nerve, right? I don't know.
The stakes have to be there. It has to matter. Otherwise, why are we following this guy?
Exactly. When I work on a season, I look at it more of it like a feature for the whole season. So I will have like a very strong midpoint. So if it's a 12 episode, I will have a strong midpoint at the 6th, episode.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I would consider the first episode, like the pilot, or even maybe the first half of the second episode, to be like the first act, right? Like building the situation. And so I will look at the whole season, using the structure, and that way I would know when to put the twist.
So I like the idea of using a structure over the entire season. I think that's fascinating. So in the States, we have a 5-act structure for a reason, because when it's on a network television, every act, at the end of each act, is a commercial break, and that's how you pay for the show. Is it that way in Israel? Do you have, you're on streaming now, but at first I think you were actually on like local network, correct?
It was like cable.
Oh, okay.
It was satellite, but no commercial breaks.
So you didn't have to work for act outs then. You only had to have the cliffhanger at the end. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at all. Not at all. And also in the broadcasters here, it's not as structured as it is in the States, because they could broadcast a whole episode without commercials if they want, like, to really hook people. So it really changes. So it's not that strict.
Oh, it's good to know.
Yeah.
When you were developing the show, how many seasons were you looking at in advance? Did you only develop season 1, or did you look at, I'm not saying, like, did you develop all of the seasons at once? Of course not. But did you have ideas and considerations for a season 2, 3, and a 4?
When you create a show, to really, think about the second season, but really think about it, not just throw another mystery to the detective, but really think about how the characters will develop, and, what lines from the first season could continue in the second season, because unless it's like a special limited series, it kind of have to have more than one season in order to be commercially, viable.
Over here, when you create a show Bible, we say to go up to a season 3 as far as where potential plot lines can go.
Sometimes when you write something, you want to leave something, you don't really know why, but like this thing, this element, this scene, this thing.
Yeah.
You kind of want it in the show, and you can't really explain it to yourself. And I really think that you need to be super patient and, like, take a deep breath and say, okay, I don't understand it now, but I will understand it later, because it's such a season is such a huge, like, machine with a million moving parts, and it's hard to see everything, like, with one glance, right? You can't, even if you zoom out and you're reading, like, the series Bible. So I really think, you should, like, kind of trust yourself that you don't know, but you will know. And there's some part of you, like, deep down inside of you, that already knows why it's there, but it's like a sculpture, right? You're still not at the part that you were.
I think that makes sense. You have to develop it, but don't overdevelop it, because you still want to allow the creative process to happen.
You just asked about Fauda, but did you know that I created a show that had 2 seasons? And I'm not only a one Fauda pony kind of thing. So in the show that I created, it's called Orpheus Project, and that's the theme. It's about belief and disbelief and faith, or science versus faith. And I mean, this is one of my, favorite themes.
And this is a sci-fi kind of show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's 2 seasons. It's a very cool show. And you want to know a funny story? The main character, the female lead cast for it was Gal Gadot, but then but then she got Wonder Woman, so she couldn't do the part. So, but we had another actress who is amazing.
Tell us about your website, because I know you have a website. I know that you have courses on teaching television.
Yeah. So I was teaching even before I went into screenwriting, and afterwards, I've been a screenwriter for a few years. I decided to teach screenwriters, and I taught it to colleges and also in a lot of Germany, and I just now actually with COVID, which I hate Zooms like everybody else, but now I get a chance to teach, like, in places that probably wouldn't, invite me for just one lecture. I had a lecture for the New Orleans University just last week, and I do a lot of in Germany. So it's really cool. But so I decided that I would have it, like, online as well, and it's called Write Better Scripts.
Okay.
And it has a lot of resources and guides and free stuff and paid stuff. And my newest class there is a course called Write a Pilot You Can Sell. It's a great course, and do it your own pace, but at the end of it, you will have a pilot, and it's super awesome. And there's a group and a lot of support. And
I think that's great. I mean, you guys can take a class from a writer who's got 2 hit shows under her belt. So I think you could do worse.
I just want to say that I have 3.
3?
Yeah, because, come on, do research. No, I have.
Oh, no. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.